Hey everybody, we're back with Birddogs, Bourbon, and the Good Life. We're here today with Bill Eberhardt. Bill, why don't you introduce yourself and what you do a little bit, and then we'll dive in.
All right, I'll just do a brief introduction. Appreciate you having me here. My name is Bill Eberhardt. I'm actually from the Wichita area. Basically, I'm a broker for a company called United Country Midwest Lifestyle Properties. I actually broker the Kansas division. We have offices actually nationwide, but I broker our regional office in Kansas. We have locations in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Kansas, and been doing that for 33 years. Just like having fun with the outdoors. One of our specialties in our niches is hunting properties, so kind of a good fit with a lot of the things we do. So, I mean, that's kind of what I do, 33 years of doing that. Also in the auction business, we're actually a real estate and auction company. So in addition to real estate, I mean, we do everything, primarily real estate when it comes to auctions, but we do a lot of business liquidation and that sort of thing as well. So just like to have fun. That's what I like to do.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to make a lot of noise. There we go.
So when you said bourbon, broads, and whatever else you said, I thought, hey, I'm there.
So speaking of bourbon, one of the big things that we focus on the podcast is we try a new bourbon every time, or we try to. And we've got Doc Swinson's. I've never had this. Have you ever had this?
Never even heard of it.
Never had it. So I am going to let you pour your glass. Pour yourself some in there. And this is a 114 proof sherry barrel. It's actually two bourbons mixed together, a sherry and I think that cask barrel. It's cask strength.
Holy
Smells
moly.
good.
114 proof. Is that normal for bourbon?
For cast.
Okay.
For a cast, it's kind of, that's pretty good. So cast strength edition. So 114 proof actually and cast strength is kind of on the lower end of it. So we had a cast strength horse soldier.
Yeah.
And it's 120. And then we had another cast strength not too long ago that was around the 120 range. So this is actually really smooth.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Carson, what do you think, buddy?
It's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, that's.
Well, I'm not the world's foremost connoisseur on bourbon, but I like it too.
I'm going to say that this is going to be one of my favorites. Definitely, I'd buy that again. So there's a little tag on here. I do not have my glasses, so I'm having a hard time reading it. The long and the short of it is it says it's two different bourbons, aged a minimum of 5 years, finished in sherry barrel. So, pretty good stuff.
I need to probably, not to interject too much here, but probably need to introduce you. There's a fella, I met him at convention last year. He's connected with the United Country real estate. You know, United Country, we actually have 600 offices nationwide with about 4,000 agents that are all individually owned. But
Wow.
We've got a guy, and I'm trying to, seems like he's either from Montana, Wyoming, somewhere, but he does a weekly deal.
Podcast,
and
yeah.
it's something, I forget what his tagline is, bourbon and real estate or something. I forget what it is, but
Yeah.
that's what he does.
So
I just thought of that.
Yeah, we've had people on that know so much more about bourbon than what I do. I'm just a silly old redneck that loves bourbon, and guys, just in case you guys wanted to know, it's a real cork.
Well, there you go. It's got to be good.
Yeah, and well, the people that listen to the podcast, I've been opening up high-end bourbons, and they've had plastic corks. And I've been ranting and raving and complaining about it every time. There have been a few that tasted okay with a plastic cork, but the plastic cork to me is a sign that it's probably not going to be that great.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can't tell until after. This was bottled quite well, dipped in wax, made it challenging to open, but we got her.
Well, they've been using corks in wine, whiskey, and bottles for a long time, so there must be something to it.
Yes, there is, definitely. So I would advise you guys give this a shot. If I remember right, this was a 80-ish $90-ish bottle of bourbon. Pretty good bourbon. Actually, well worth the money if what you're doing is sitting down to enjoy a drink of bourbon, right? I wouldn't advise you to, unless you're much more better off than I am in life, trying to make this your daily drinker. You might go bankrupt. But it is a very good, very, very good bourbon. We got it at DJ Liquor here in Hutchinson, Kansas. So
Here's the DJ.
here's the DJ's Liquor. So, Bill, one of the big, I've known you for several years, but we've really never had the opportunity to sit down and talk.
No, we haven't.
It's always been a very stringent time frame, working relationship. The way Bill and I know each other is I'm president of Pheasants Forever, which most people know, and Bill comes in and donates his time to be the MC and auctioneer at the banquet, which if you were to pay him to do that, that's quite a little bit that you would have to pay an auctioneer to come in and MC and everything. And he donates all his time to do this for us. And he's been doing it as much as he's been available for many, many years.
I'd say at least, well, I think I did the first one back in 2010, if I remember right.
Yeah. So he's really been engaged in Pheasants Forever. I know he does what other organizations do you donate your time to?
Pheasants Forever is probably one of the biggest ones, and I've done their national event a couple times. Wild Turkey Federation, done some for them. Rocky Mountain Elk, we've helped them out a time or two. Ducks Unlimited. I'm really, I do less of them than I used to.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in the auction business, especially when you're first starting out, I've been doing it for a long enough time where I can be kind of picky and choosy about what I want to do. And so now I really got to really believe and, have a heart for the cause, or really I'm not that interested in doing them anymore. Otherwise, you kind of get taken advantage of,
Yeah.
I guess would be
you do.
a kind way to put it. Them were just some of the few, the WSU trap shooting team. I just did my first event for them because one of the kids on the team, I happened to be friends with his mom, and she contacted me, and we did that out of Flint Oaks. Had a lot of fun with that, and that's the thing, when you do an event like even the Pheasants Forever. I mean, it's usually fun.
Oh yeah.
And I'm okay. I like donating my time. I like helping people. I like being a problem solver. That's kind of what I do. That's kind of what really, if you had to define my job title, I'm a problem solver. But I like having fun, and I like helping out causes that I deem worthy and that I have a heart for. So.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, we greatly appreciate it because until last year, you were just totally booked up. We weren't able to hit everything right and be able to get you in because of the dates and all that. And so I've been emceeing because the other auctioneers really didn't do it.
Right.
And so I'd been emceeing plus trying to run the banquet at the same time.
That's too much.
And it didn't work out real great for me. So last year I was like, this is awesome. It was great having you there, someone who has such fantastic skill sets with being able to work the mic and communicate with people and go to all the games and promote them in the right way. You really saved me and helped out the chapter tremendously. We greatly appreciate that.
I mean, it is a gift. I mean, from the auction side of things, I'm proud to say, I graduated from CAI Auction Academy, which is in Bloomington, Indiana. One of the things about, when you do auction work, not all auctioneers, just because you can talk fast and rattle off some numbers, that doesn't necessarily mean, I often joke that in the beginning I'd say, I like being an auctioneer because when I get in front of a mic, I don't have to say anything that makes any sense. But when you can do both, because being an MC and doing the auction part of the job, I mean, it's really two totally different things.
Yes, it is.
So,
and the other thing that I really like about the way you work it is you work the crowd.
Oh yeah.
You joke with the crowd, you poke with the crowd, you have fun with the crowd, and a lot of auctioneers just don't have that skill set and ability to do that, and it it becomes quite frustrating, because you know, and I know, especially at these Pheasants Forever events and banquets, fundraisers, you really got to get the crowd engaged,
Right.
especially during the live auction, and you got to make it fun and lighthearted, because if you're basically just doing a farm auction
Right.
up there, you're not going to really maximize your potential.
You know, I mean, my job is to get their money, and how you do that, you gotta make them feel comfortable with you. You know, who's this guy, and you know that sort of thing. But yeah, you know, you work the crowd, you joke with them, you have fun with them, and I mean, honestly, I mean, not brag or boast or anything, but you know, a lot of the events that I still do, I mean, I know, you know, when I look at numbers, I mean, I've come into events. And, you know, I've had people tell me, you know, because of you, I mean, we doubled what they used to do. I mean, because it is. I mean, that's how you do that. You got to be joking. You got to be lighthearted. And you got to have fun with that crowd and really work them. I mean, you know, when you've been doing it a while, of course, you know, the auction side of it, you know, I know when that guy's going to bid before he knows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know who to watch, and you know who to go smooth, you know who to, you know, crack the joke with, and you do that, and they bid again. And, you know, it's all about the cause, and, you know, so, yeah, again, it's all about having fun. If everybody's having fun and remember what they're there for, you know, in them situations like Pheasants Forever or any of the other charitable events, you know, they're there to spend money, and they're happy to do it if they're having fun. If they're not having fun, they're pretty tight with the wallet.
Oh yeah, they are definitely. That's why we make sure they have enough liquid to keep them relaxed all evening. So I'm going to go into a little bit of a conversation. I saw you had a little video on Facebook. And in the video, you were talking kind of a little bit about what you do and a little bit about your history and your background. And one of the things you stated is you really didn't start hunting until you were 16, did you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, my story, I mean, it's probably not typical, you know, of a lot of the hunters out there, or maybe it is, you know, everybody has their own story. But, yeah, I mean, I grew up probably in the poorest part of Wichita. And, you know, doing outdoor activities that involved spending money of any kind, I just didn't have that luxury. Yeah. But about the time I was 16, that's when I first, actually, I've been working every day since I was 14. But at 16, you know, when I could drive and I could, you know, make some decisions for myself, I actually had some friends of my mother that worked with my mother that were big into hunting, and they kind of got me into hunting. I mean, I always enjoyed the outdoors. I mean, you know, grew up outside all the time. Fishing mostly, did a lot of camping with the family, but never really, you know, touched on the hunting. But then when I was introduced to these guys, got a taste for really, you know, upland birds and deer mostly. But yeah, I mean, you know, any guy tell you, you know, once you get a taste of that, I mean, you can't help but fall in love with the outdoors and hunting, no matter what it is. And I've been on some amazing hunting trips.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the big things that. I'm sure when you started hunting, it was all about getting that game, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
And then as you grew older, it started to turn in a little bit more about the people you're with, didn't it? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that for a sec. So as you got older, in that little video clip I saw, you were talking about how you got your kids involved in hunting.
Right.
So this is where I ask a couple questions in the podcast, and I'm actually way ahead of myself on this, but it's fitting in at the right time. So thinking about the hunting opportunities you've done with your kids and all this stuff, what is the funniest hunting, fishing experience? And then what is the most memorable hunting or fishing experience? And it doesn't have to be with your kids.
Right.
It's just I find that guys our age, it tends to lean that way a little more often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and I've had this conversation with so many hunting friends. You know, the more you do it, I mean, it does become less about the hunt and more about the camaraderie, more about the camp, and more about, you know, hanging out either before or after. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not quite as guilty of it, but I, you know, have some friends that, you know, they'll go, hunt in whatever state. Let's say they're deer camp in Iowa or whatever. They may get their deer the first day, but they stay for the other 5 days just to hang out with the guys. Because you build bonds with the people that you share the outdoors with. And like you said, exactly, I mean, it does become more and more about that because, it's just a guy thing. I don't know. I mean, it goes all the way back, I'm sure, to the caveman days. I mean, we just like hanging out together and, and that's the perfect opportunity, the perfect environment. There's no better guy environment. Not that hunting isn't for women, because it is. I mean, I've been on some great trips, women involved. But, as far as guys bonding, I think it's just a natural thing to do that around a campfire or at deer camp, over a drink and a cigar or whatever the case may be. There's just nothing like that.
No, there isn't.
And you build, friendships that last for a lifetime.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the friendships never go away, because the other thing is you may not see each other all year until, let's call it deer camp or hunting camp. You may not see each other for a year until hunting camp, but it's once you see each other, it's like you never left, and the friendship just rekindles, and it's not like it ever left. But you're able to get back into it, and the best thing about hunting camp is you don't need to have any of the filters. Right. You don't need to worry about what you say, how you say it, because all your buddies are just as crude and rude as you are, and it lets you relax and unwind. Yeah. So, on the lines of those stories, what are you thinking?
So, you asked for a funny story with the kids. I mean, I can't really think of any real funny ones other than, and I'm sure probably everybody listening out there in podcast land has probably, experienced this if they've been hunting with their kids. When you start out with them with a little falling asleep in the deer blind.
Oh, yeah.
That's always a funny one, because they get up at, butt crack of dawn because they're so excited, actually way before crack of dawn, because they're so excited. You get to deer camp and, the adrenaline's been pumping, and they get in there on that bucket or that seat, and they fall asleep.
Yep.
But, I had, when they fall asleep and whether they, fall off the bucket or almost fall off the bucket, I mean, all of a sudden, there could have been 20, world-class 200-point bucks or 200 score deer walk by in the time, and here I'm staring at my kid, just waiting to see, is he going to fall off that bucket, because they're doing this thing, with the gun in their hand, you're just making sure they're not going to shoot you while they're doing it. But that's funny. But several, stories of the kids, getting tired from all the rush, all the build up, and you no longer get in the field and they're tired.
Yeah.
So that's probably not all I could think of, being put on the spot as far as funny. But been on some great trips. Was that the other part of the question?
The other one is the most memorable.
Most memorable.
When you and the key is it's the one that just pops in, right?
I guess still probably one of my favorite trips and most memorable went with those 10 of us that went on a dove hunt in Argentina. And, that type of hunt, that's, most serious, bird hunters. That's a bucket list trip that typically you're probably only going to do maybe once in your life. And I did that several years ago, but it was really just a fun trip. The guys we went with, it was just a great time. And, being a dove hunter in Kansas, of course, I've always loved dove hunting in Kansas. I guess that would be, this might tie back into the funny part, but my boys are both dead-eye shots.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I'm getting to where I can't hardly see a dove anymore. So even though I love dove and I love dove hunting, I just can't hardly see them anymore. So they like to make fun of me for that. But that dove hunt trip in Argentina, the contrast, when you're talking about, a whatever bird limit in Kansas, which isn't very many, whether it be 10, 12, or 15, when you go to Argentina and they're like mosquitoes flying by the millions, really I guess it's probably a misnomer. It's not really dove hunting, it's dove shooting, because you're just shooting till. And this trip we went on, it was pretty luxurious. It was a 5-star type trip. The place we stayed was off the chart. When you got your own bird boy that, I break open the silver pigeon, and his job is to put 2 shells and also keep count of how many birds I'm shooting. That's his job. And give me a cerveza whenever I holler. That's pretty, world-class type trip.
Yeah.
Actually, the place we were at right before we had got there, Jerry Jones and all his crew had been there right before us. So pretty elite, So And not that it has to be that type of trip to be memorable, but it was memorable because I guess, again, the contrast of, you sit at a pond on a pond in Kansas to hunt dove, shoot dove. I mean, take you all day to get a dozen. I forget the stats, but I mean, our group, we shot over 20,000 birds.
Holy cow.
I mean, they fly in the millions, and you can shoot as many as you want. You shoot as many as you want, but it gets kind of expensive because you pay per shell. So, I only shot a case of shells, and I only had about a 50%
harvest rate.
Harvest rate or hit rate. But anyway, lots of fun. That was probably one of them. One of the second most memorable was actually a pig hunting trip in Gator, Mississippi. Matter of fact, I had mentioned my good buddy Richard a few minutes ago that runs a outfitting business, and he's an agent with our company. Because of him, I mean, we'd been down to Chipper Jones's ranch. We was looking at possibly selling it for him a few years ago. This has been right before he went back to work for the Braves. But anyway, we ended up in Gator, Mississippi, which was Matt Duff's, another good friend of his. He used to be a professional baseball player too, but we ended up at his home place in Mississippi and hunting hogs. And it was just a lot of fun because when I'm not sure if it's hunting hogs is what we was doing. What made it fun?
Hogs.
Yeah, what made it fun though, and probably when we was about halfway there, we'd spent the night somewhere in Texas, I forget where, but and we're driving. And Richard starts telling me how we're going to hunt these hogs. I was, in the car thinking we're going to go down and shoot some hogs. No, that's not how they do it there. I mean, number one, it was fun because we did it on horseback. I'm a horse guy. I used to do a little team roping. I like horses and, messing with cattle, working ranches and stuff like that. That's kind of something I do for pleasure with some of my ranch clients. So we got to hunt off horseback. So we're in the swamps of Gator, Mississippi. I mean, that name was just cool.
I was
Gator, Mississippi. Yeah. I mean, that's something you'd see on, some hunting channel. But what they do is, I mean, they hunt these pigs with dogs. So they got the tracking dogs or the baying dogs that'll bay a pig, and then the guys will turn loose the catch dogs, which are typically pit bulls, and they'll catch the dog. And then once the pig's caught, it's our job to run up, grab it by its hind legs, because I didn't know this. Once you grab it by a pig by its hind legs, it's pretty much powerless because that's where all its strength is. It don't have any strength in its front legs, and it can't get away from you, even if it's a big pig. And then you just slit their throat. I mean, that's kind of crude, but that's how they did it. And Richard was telling me this, and I thought he was just kidding.
Yeah.
And we get down there, and then it starts sinking in. No, this is really how I said, I'm not doing that. Hey, so we're tromping through the swamps on horseback, and we're supposed to jump off and jump on this pig, basically. But then out walks this little 10-year-old kid, and we're saying, well, he does it. Well, what do you got to do?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do it now.
Yeah,
so once I did it, it was fun. So you talk about memorable because I was not expecting that in any way, shape, or form. I thought we was going down there to shoot hogs, but we was going down there to catch them and cut them. So
yeah. Well, if you think about it, the meat's in a lot better condition doing it.
Well, true. But I mean, really, my favorite hunting is kind of one of your, passions and pastimes. I like shooting pheasant. Pheasant, chucker. Quail a little bit less because they're kind of like the doves. I can't see them as well as I get older.
And they move like
they're way faster. But that's what I prefer to do. But to kind of tie in with the camaraderie and the people you meet. For me, I mean, really, it's still about the people you hang out with because I can put the shotgun on my shoulder and go walk a field all day, and I don't care if I ever take a shot.
Yeah.
Just out there doing it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and watching the dogs work.
Exactly. Watching good dogs work.
Yeah, and when the biggest thing that I just love is when we're working our dogs and you get one dog go on point and then all the other dogs lock up and honor, and they don't smell the bird at all. They're just honoring that other dog. And it's just such a great experience. And I've had hunters, I've seen it so many times, right, because I guide, and I've seen it so many times, I don't get excited anymore.
Yeah.
But I've had hunters that they'll come up, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to flush the bird, get ready. I flush the bird, and that gun hardly hits their shoulder, and I hear a boom, and then the second shot they get it. And so I started telling people, I was like, okay, when I come up and I flush the bird, pull your gun up, and as soon as you pull your gun up, start counting to 3. Go 1, 2, 3, and then squeeze the trigger,
Right.
and you're not going to waste as much ammo.
Yeah.
And so I started getting people to do that a little bit more, and they relax a little bit more because they're more thinking about counting to 3 than shooting the bird, and they're getting more birds this way. And it's just it's so funny because we've taken out big groups. You'll get one bird up, and you'll hear
20 shots.
20 shots, and the bird's still going. And then there's the guy on the end, boom, and then the bird falls. And then you hear guys in the middle, I got it, even though it's very clear who got it. It's that type of humor and camaraderie I think guys can't get too many other places.
Exactly.
Without getting ridiculed for it anymore today.
I mean, that brings a thought to mind. I've never once in my life said I got it, even though when I know I've got it. But I know there's, some teenage kid or somebody, maybe it's their first time. If they say they got it, they got it.
Mm-hmm. So the ones I'm talking about are not teenage kids.
Yeah.
So we have one client that comes down quite often, and the joke is he doesn't even pull his gun up, and he'll be yelling, "I got it!" And everybody knows he's joking around. So we got done with one hunt, and we were like, "How many birds did we get?" So on and so forth, and we counted, and there were 16 birds, and I was like, "But if you ask so and so, we got 18, and he got them all." So there's a lot of humor involved.
Oh, yeah.
With all that stuff and how it goes on, and it gets everybody to bond better,
Oh, yeah.
and they have a better time. So I'm going to jump subjects again. I jump a lot. So you were talking before you were a real estate guy. You were a machinist.
Right.
So what passion drove you from being a machinist to being in real estate? Because real estate, to me, because I don't know much about it, would seem like a little bit of a gamble. Because about the time you switched, with your age, and when you said you switched, you probably had kids or were getting close to it.
Actually, I mean, that was part of the reason I switched to real estate when I did. I mean, one of the things, I mean, we'll kind of take a couple more steps back. Again, I grew up poor. I remember, reading the book, Art of the Deal by Donald Trump, because here I am, the kid living in the ghetto, reading these books about rich guys and, the keys to the success. And I don't know, read several books, and the key ingredient always seemed to be, people involved in real estate, not necessarily in the real estate business of buying and selling real estate, but more of owning real estate. So it piqued my interest about the real estate business. So in all honesty, I mean, when I was in junior high, I kind of made the decision, I'd like to be in the real estate business someday. But I did get some good advice from a friend of my parents who said, yeah, that all sounds, fine and good, but, maybe you should, think about getting a good blue-collar skill under your belts and learn how to do something that you could always fall back on.
Yeah.
And I think, looking back, I think he was just humoring me, thinking, I'd buckle down and learn a trade, and that's what I'd actually stick with. And he advised me about being a machinist because that's what he was.
Yeah.
He had been out at Boeing for 100 years at that time or whatever it was. I mean, he was an old guy. And, he really opened the door and told me about, VOTEC program at East High, where I went to East High, graduated there in '83. But in VOTEC at that time, well, it still is, it's not called VOTEC anymore. I don't know what it's called. They do the same thing, but there was a program where I could, go to high school and VOTEC at the same time. So my whole 3 years of going to high school, I went to East High in the mornings, and I'd go to VOTEC for 2.5 hours in the afternoon, and then I'd go to work after that. But I did. I learned the trade of being a machinist, which was a good, high-paying job then. It still is. I think it actually, it actually paid better then than I think it does now, especially at Boeing, since the whole Spirit breakup and all that thing and buyout and all that. But don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But
no.
So, I mean, with that advice, I did that, and I loved it. And, you know, I went to work at Boeing and as a machinist, and, you know, immediately started telling all the guys I worked with, you know, that, you know, I'm just here temporarily, you know,
Yeah.
till I get my real estate career going. And I did. So, you know, in the beginning, I was a real estate agent because I worked second shift at Boeing.
Ah,
So I was a real estate agent by day, machinist by night. I was single all that time. And to kind of answer your question, I really didn't have a monkey on my back. You know, I didn't have to worry about feeding anybody but myself. So, you know, for me, that was the perfect opportunity for me to kind of figure out that, you know. So I started working at Boeing in late '85 and all the way through '92. Got my real estate license in '90. Spent a couple years building up my real estate business, and started telling the guys I worked with, you know, here's my drop dead date of when I'm gonna quit, and I'm gonna go real estate full time. And of course, they all looked at me like I had three heads. Oh, sure you are, because they were trapped in their job. They didn't have any other options, and it was a lot of money to walk away from. And of course, because of my poor upbringing, my parents at that time really thought I was crazy, you know, to leave a job that I got
a guaranteed paycheck.
I got a paycheck every 2 weeks, whether I worked or not, whether I did anything. To a job that, I mean, I strictly work on commission. I mean, and that's been my life, you know, for 33 years now.
yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it for anything because you and I talked about it a little bit, you know, prior to the podcast going live. I mean, I love the machinist work, and I still love working with my hands, still love doing about any type of labor I can do about anything. But what I didn't like about that work was the captivity of that plant. I just couldn't see myself doing that for 40 years.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, 92, you know, for 2 years I was top real estate agent in the office I worked for, and I was a dang good machinist, and I got some pretty good offers and you know, enticements and things trying to get. Once they realized I was serious about quitting, they was offering me, you know, everything under the sun to get me to stay, and I said, I'm sorry, appreciate it, glad you know, think that highly of me to be making these offers, but can't do it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it for 40 years. It's just no way.
So let's dive into this real estate. So when most people think about real estate and a agent, right, they're thinking about the person that just shows them their house when they buy their house. But what you do is significantly different in the aspect of, yes, you'll still sell a house if you choose to.
Right.
Right. But you really work a lot towards hunting properties. I'm gonna stay on the real estate side for a little bit, then we'll go to the auction side. But you really focus on hunting properties quite a bit. And hunting properties, so tell me the evolution of how property, so I've noticed over the last, let's say 10 years, and it might have been longer, it may not be as long, but over the last 10 years, I see a lot more ads, promotions for hunting properties instead of ground for sale or land for sale. Tell us, do you know where I'm kind of trying to go?
It's been, I mean, looking back, I mean, it's been an evolution it's pretty amazing. And, I mean, nothing I'm going to say probably from this point on is fact. It's just merely my opinion, which we know what opinions are worth. But I think, you know, what's happened, and again, to kind of echo what you were saying, what I do is, you know, I sell real estate. You know, real estate can be anything from a house to, you know, a commercial building to a piece of farm ground to a hunting ground. But that evolution, especially and I mean, you can't pick up any publication. I mean, everybody's the land specialist and knows all about, you know, hunting property. You know, with our company, again, we're called Midwest Lifestyle Properties because for us, it is a lifestyle. And it's kind of, you know, evolved over time. So, I mean, we're about, you know, our agents are really, you know, the guys that live that type of lifestyle because, you know, it's almost like, and you'll see it, and some agents do real estate. When I say agents, real estate agents kind of pigeonhole themselves in kind of what type of real estate they sell. I've never done that because I'm about helping people. I'm going to help anybody. If it's real estate, it's real estate. But as far as our niche and what we love to do, It is, we love to do what we love to do, which for me, it's really two things. I love, country homes and country properties. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I have a love for, ranches, so I like the ranch properties. I sell a lot of farm ground, but know very little about farming other than, the things I need to know to be able to recognize and, be able to evaluate the good qualities of a good piece of farm ground. But the lifestyle of the hunting, hunting properties, that whole evolution, I believe, because I can remember, back when I first started hunting, you could knock on almost anybody's door and get permission to hunt on their property.
Oh, yeah.
But, over time, as you know, I mean, you're an outfitter. I mean, it's become more of a business. It's, it's a big major industry now. So, the farmers and the landowners have realized that, I don't have to let, the people that knock on my door, hunt for free. I can get paid for that. And and a lot of that's been driven by, people in my profession. We've, realized, and we've helped that along, helping people realize, whether it's, because most farm ground is good hunting ground, as you know, whether it's dry crop, type property, whether it's irrigated, whether it's just a, 60 or quarter of CRP. I mean, that's, good hunting ground. And so over time, the farmers and them owners have become more in tune with the fact that, I can make a little bit of money on the side because, quite honestly, we can all use a little extra money, So that's what I believe has, driven, and it's driven the price up because, it kind of started out, back in the beginning, and again, this is merely opinion, when we first started selling hunting ground, and we are one of the top sellers of hunting ground in the United States. I mean, United Country, as a rule, I mean, last year we did about $10 billion in sales. We sell more land than any other real estate country out there. I'll throw that little plug in, just because we do, and we've been doing it for 100 years. I mean, United Country itself has been around since 1923, so we kind of know what we're doing. But that's where the company started.
Yeah.
They started out actually in the farm and land business. So over time, again, the landowners realize, there's a way to monetize this. But in addition to that, back when, I could think back 20 years, typically the people that were buying, land just for recreation, whether that was, to hunt on, whether it was to fish on, or whether it was to take the four-wheelers and side-by-sides out just to play around on, the people buying that had money. I mean, they were typically the doctors, the dentists, the orthodontists, the attorneys, that had the disposable income to buy that type of property. So it's, in my mind, it's a status symbol. I mean, when you can have, when a guy has done well enough in life to where he's got enough disposable income where he can buy a piece of this great country just to go play on, that's a status symbol.
Yes, it is.
You've heard the term trophy ranches. That's a big thing. I mean, there's lots of, the richest people in the world own ranches, and they may have never been on a horse in their life, but they, own,
they own a ranch.
They own a 300,000 acre ranch somewhere. So that's, and what's happened over time is, I can remember back, you put in correlation what I would call, decent piece of hunting ground, 20 years ago wasn't worth much. Well, now, because the guys with the money want it bad enough, they'll pay more than a farmer can afford to pay for it. So it's turned into a good business for us as real estate agents too. So, plug in our lifestyle and the things we love to do anyway. It was just it was matrimony, a match made in heaven, and here we are. So, selling, recreational property, whether it be, again, for hunting, fishing, just a weekend getaway, whatever the case may be. It's just grown into a massive, massive business, and it's a big part of our portfolio and what we do.
Yeah, and the other big thing a lot of people don't realize is you use the phrase disposable income. I specifically know people that are looking for ground as an investment.
Right.
So they're going out and buying ground, holding the ground for X time frame, let the value go up, drop the ground, take that money, immediately reinvest it so they don't have to pay taxes on it, and buy more ground.
Right.
So there is the ground doesn't, I personally, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, please do. I've never seen ground lose value.
It's never went down.
No,
In
I've
price.
never ever seen it go down. I've only seen it go up.
Right.
Matter of fact, if you look at land cost, I'm going to say 4 years ago, I know a piece of ground that was worth $1,500 an acre 4 years ago, and now it's worth $3,000.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go down. Now, does it always grow that fast? No. But there is the growth aspect in ground that is always there.
It's a great investment. I mean, it really goes back to the one thing. I mean, who made it all to begin with?
Yep.
He's not making any more.
Yeah.
There's only so much. So, yeah, I mean, you know, real estate prices in general, and especially when it comes to land. I mean, you know, farm ground really, it's a commodity, and you know, we used to see price fluctuations based on whatever the commodity prices were doing. But you know, the whole farming aspect and what's gone on in this country, you know, farming's been pretty good. I mean, we hear all the, you know, the woe with me stories from the farmers. You know, they're not all doing well. I mean, you know, farming's, you know, it's a big business. It's a very expensive business. It's a very labor-intensive business. You know, the only problems we're seeing now is, you know, the cost of inputs, you know, to farm and grow anything, whether it be cattle, soybean, corn, wheat, or whatever the case may be, as, you know, gone through the rough, and really, you know, the commodity prices aren't keeping up with that. So, again, then that kind of goes back, you know, I'll say it, you know, don't want to sound bad, but the rich doctor, the rich dentist, you know, somebody with that type of income, they can afford and will pay more for a good, productive piece of farm ground than a farmer can afford to pay, because for them, it's a business.
Yep.
You know, it's a business decision. You know, they can put pencil to paper and figure out, you know, if my intentions are to grow corn or wheat on this ground, you know, there's only so much I can pay for it.
Yep.
And typically, you know, the recreation guy is willing to pay a little bit more than that. So they've actually made it a little bit harder for the farmer in that aspect, because, you know, the farmer that does want to expand his operation has been forced to pay a little more, and probably on the backside is making a little less on his crops. So, you know, it's fun business, and, you know, the lifestyle that we get to lead, and, you know, just the people, you know, we're getting to work with and deal with people that think like we do, that, you know, you can go out and show a piece of ground to, whether it be a farmer or a rec guy. You know, I've signed contracts in, you know, I've signed real estate deals out in somebody's, you know, hunting stand. You know, I go out, I've taken closing papers on, you know, $1 million plus deal right out to where I knew he would be, because he wasn't leaving that deer stand to come in and sign the papers at the title company on a, you know, $2 million piece of property he just bought. But
No.
you bring it to me, I'll sign it. So, of course, what I do, I go out and have him sign it, and end up having to help him put up the deer stand while I'm there. So
Maybe
you know,
it was more of a, hey, I need help.
We're
with this deer
full
stand up.
service,
Yeah.
full service.
So I'm going to go back to one of the things you said, that, and I'm going to spin a little more of a positive light. A lot of these people with money, doctors, lawyers, whatever they are going out and buying these pieces of ground, and they have no intention on farming it.
Right.
Like you said, it is purely investment. But when they go in and buy that ground, a lot of the times they will negotiate with the farmer so that the farmer can still, if a farmer's currently leasing the ground,
Oh,
he can
absolutely.
pick up that, continue the lease, continue to be productive, continue to make money on the property for himself, as well as make money for the doctor. So a lot of that is a benefit, because then some of the farmers that are struggling, they don't have to go out and buy that ground.
Right.
They continue to lease that ground and continue to make money off of it in that aspect.
Oh, that happens more than you know. I mean, and I think I started to say it and went down a rabbit hole somewhere. But, yeah, I mean, back in the beginning, as people were buying, you know, what I call, you know, recreational type property, they weren't so much thinking about, oh, you know, how do I, you know, make this, you know, ground make a little bit of money for me. At least, you know, it started out with, you know, how can I get at least enough to at least pay for the taxes and at least
Yeah.
pay for me to get there a couple times a year. But over time, they also realized, you know, again, what makes a good piece of upland, hunting property is a good farm.
Yeah.
With, maybe some, row crops and then maybe some CRP on the perimeter or whatever the case may be. But yeah, they also realize, my smarter investment is to buy, a good multiple use type property that, I can have the tenant farmer that makes income, or, lease out pasture for cattle. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of landowners, and again, whether it's the recreation guy or whether it's somebody buying it for investment, yeah, they are more in tune now than they were in the beginning when this whole evolution began, I believe, of how they can make money with this piece of property, because it is. I mean, it is an investment. One of our catchphrases is stand on your investment, because there are some investments you can make that you can't stand on them. But, the thing about a piece of dirt that you buy, it's not really going anywhere.
No.
And you kind of mentioned it already, but yeah, I mean, historically and theoretically, yeah, I mean, land prices have not went down ever.
No.
Because, again, there's only limited supply, and I just don't ever see it really going down. So, there are a lot of people, and it's good for our business that, we have this big group of people that are looking to buy, land for investment. Bonus if they can go play on it, if they can go hunt on it, that sort of thing. And they do, they start out here and they may trade up over time. A lot of our clientele are out-of-state buyers, and they are very wealthy, and they'll almost buy almost anything under our recommendation. Because one of the key things too, and this is, you've seen this grow, I'm sure, in your business. I mean, when you talk about property management.
Yes.
And I'm not just talking about the management, managing who's on it and who's not, but actually managing that piece of property to its full potential, where, you have, all the key elements, whether it be for hunting and, for the farming. Because a lot of time the land manager, he's doing more than just, collecting rents from the tenant farmer. He's also, he may be dealing with a guy that's, developing the habitat for the wildlife, and right along lines and in correlation with what the farmer's doing. And, and it's been, that part of it's been a big help, I believe, as far as conservation, because I have a heart for conservation, because if we don't conserve what we have, it's going to go away. So you got to manage the land properly, and, basically, build a piece of property to where, it can be used for its highest and best use, whether that be, because there are some properties that, aren't suited to grow, a bushel of wheat on. So
No.
therefore, it's just primarily hunting property, and, different parts of the state. And I've done, we've worked in almost every county in the state. I mean, we service any county in Kansas. And like I say, even Iowa. Actually, I can sell property in any state in the whole United States. And now actually Canada and Mexico, whatever, we have that referral network in place. But, it is about stewardship, and it's about, that conservation, and it's about taking care of that land. And, a lot of the guys that are in your business are very good at that. One of my agents that I've mentioned, that's what he does as well. He's all about, habitat management. And I guarantee you, any property that he's ever leased from a farmer, for hunting rights, he's improved that property and made it more valuable when he leaves, if he ever leaves, than when he started.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of people. So I've reached out to lots of people in my time, and there's been a lot of people that are like, yeah, not a problem, we'll lease to you, so on and so forth. And then we've had the groups that are like, I'm not leasing to outfitters. And so I always stop them, and I'm like, can you explain to me why? And because I'd like to understand why, so maybe we can come to an agreement if I understand why you feel the way you feel. And so I've had a lot of them tell me, well, you guys just come in and rape and pillage the ground and blah, 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 and blah. And I was like, let me explain to you what we actually do.
Right.
And so what we do is we go in and we manage your property to maximize the wildlife on your property, and to take the minimal amount that we can out, because if we go in and rape your property, then I'm paying lease on something that there's nothing there.
Right.
And typically we sign 5-year leases. So for 5 years, I'm going to build your property up. So hopefully at the end of the 5 years, you can look at me and say, I'd like a little bit more money because my property's so much better. And then we can come to an agreement on how that works out. But guides and outfitters are the last people to come in and rape and pillage your ground. And one of the things you said earlier is back in the day, you and I, in our youth, could walk up to any house, knock on the door, and go hunting. And in a lot of times, we didn't even ask.
Right.
Because it was just known you could just go do it. But in today's society, the reason that's gone away is because there's too many people out there, or that were out there, that would go knock on the door and then go do something stupid.
Yeah.
And then farmers are like, well, part of the reason your hunting stuff is going up is because farmers are like, well, if I tell them they got to pay me, at least I can go afford to pay for the stuff they tore up.
Right.
Or go fix that fence that they tore down when they pushed it down or stood on it or jumped on it to get over it or whatever they did. And so there's a lot to that big picture of why hunting ground, why you can't just go knock on somebody's door anymore.
Yeah, I believe that's probably the bad apples, because there were a lot of bad apples, and it's probably more prevalent now, in what you do, the professional guides. I think there's been a turnaround, the farmers or the landowners that are leasing to you and other outfits like yours, they realize that you're the guys that are going to take care of land. But, they remember, they remember the beginning when they would okay for, some stranger from, some city slicker, give them the okay to come hunt, and the next thing they know, after they're gone, they go out, the field's rutted up, the gate's left open, the cows are out, and, whatever the case may be, damage is done. And, I think there was that was a pretty big hurdle to get over, probably for a lot of guys in your business, I'm sure, to make that landowner understand that, we're looking for longevity here.
Yeah.
I don't want to just hunt this property, today. I want to hunt it, every year. So we can't come in here and just, shoot everything, obliviate everything on this property and expect to be able to come back here next year.
No.
There's care and there's a lot that goes into that, and it's all about the property management. So, it's guys like you and the professional outfitters that have kind of turned that tide, and I think it's gotten better and better. But, the liability issue, that was another big thing, that I think, kind of did away with, the knocking on the door hunting, because, accidents would happen or things would happen. Well, who's liable for that? The landowner. And they just don't want that liability anymore. So I think it's great. I think it makes, most of the properties out there better, So, when you employ, professional outfitter like yourself, I mean, I got lots of places I could go hunt for free, but I also know that I can spend some money with a professional that's going to get me on, good game quicker, because, I'm just showing up for, them 3 or 4 or 5 days of hunting season, whatever I've allotted to hunt, and I walk onto that ground not knowing nothing. Well, the typical outfitter, they've scouted that property sometimes every day, not always every day, but for, all year long. They know what's going on with that property. So, it's money well spent, just again, when it's about the game and it's about the hunt and you want a successful trip, you're better off going with a professional. Just like in my case, if you want to, buy the right piece of land, you're better off going with a professional that knows what it is you're actually looking for, understands your lifestyle, because we live the same lifestyle ourselves. Doctors don't operate on themselves. They, get another professional to operate on them. So, there's just lots of benefit to that.
On the side of going with a professional like yourself, looking at ground, so you've got people, let's say, I'm just going to pick a state in New York. You have people from New York that are like, hey, I'd like to have a 40-acre, 100-acre, 200-acre, whatever piece of ground. I don't have time to come look at it. I need it duck or turkey and deer. It's got to have trophy deer on it. I'm going to put it in your hands to do. They can't say that. It's kind of a huge risk to say that to someone who isn't living, as you so eloquently put it several times, the lifestyle. So you can walk onto a property, walk around it. I know I can walk around the property one time, and I can tell you what's on that property, how big they are, how frequently they come through there, and what that property's about worth for a hunter within 15 minutes. And I know you've been doing this longer than I have been, so you can walk out and do it in 5. So it's pretty.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility because we do have that clientele that, give us carte blanche to, if you say it's good, then without even seeing it, they'll make that purchase. But, you got to be careful with that too, because, there's people, agents that, would let their greed dictate, some of their decisions and make a poor decision, for a potential client. And I would never, put myself at that risk because, I'm putting my reputation on the line. If I tell you it's good, it better be good, because if it's not, I'm going to have somebody mad at me and probably lose that client. So, you got to be careful in that regard too. So,
and we grew up in a different world.
Yeah.
So you and I grew up in a world where our word means
exactly
more than what we signed on that piece of paper.
Right.
Because it's pride. If we tell you we're going to do this, this, and this, we're going to do this, this, and this. And if we say this is good, it's going to be good.
I can tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves, as far as, selling, we're talking hunting ground, so there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, right here in this state alone, agents that proclaim to be, some sort of specialist or, selling and marketing hunting land. And to see an advertisement or any type of marketing campaign on a piece of property that proclaiming that, this is great hunting property with no proof that it is.
Yeah.
If we're going to market a piece of hunting property, we put the trail cans out, we put, the feed out, and we've documented, whether we've, got documentation from the landowner themselves or we, work to achieve it ourselves. But don't tell me this is the greatest piece of hunting ground in the world and you can't show me any type of documentation that a deer or a quail or a pheasant's ever been on this property.
Yeah. Because when I go through the properties, I'm looking at leasing those properties, right? And I know what I'm looking for, right? And I know the habitat. I know I'm going in places I can guarantee you would probably go, but I can guarantee a lot of agents wouldn't go in the areas that I'm going to validate, because I know where they're going, right? And you're wanting to see what's going on that property. That's why I said I can tell 15, 20 minutes or so what's on that property and what's been going on. You can't wear your loafers out there.
No.
And go in shorts.
No, don't go out there in your high heels to be, tromping around in a field showing a, piece of deer hunting ground or any type of hunting ground, really. So, yeah, it is. It's totally different. It's a whole different mindset. But that's, kind of the beauty of it and, why a lot of guys that do what I do, that's why we love it. When your job is to, go around and scout a piece of property or look at a piece of property or potentially show that piece of property, you're out there on the property. Again, I talked about, I could go hunt all day and never take a shot. It's just being out there.
Yeah.
And just imagining, for me, it's really more about, I can walk on a piece of property and I could just imagine, the hunt and, the fun that could be had on this property and the memories that can be made. And for me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things that I think if someone out there is listening and they're...
I hope somebody's out there. Anybody out there?
Yeah, someone out there listening, and they might be younger or no matter what age they are, and they're thinking, man, this really sounds like a career I'd like to go into. What would be the right path for someone to walk down to try to start a successful real estate business like you have?
Well, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to build up, but probably the number one most important thing, and it's because it's what worked for me, so I can only speak from my own experience, is to find a good mentor. And that's kind of what we're about. You've kind of mentioned a video you saw that I did here recently. And for me, that's kind of what I love. I love teaching. I love mentoring. That's why I love brokering, I guess, you know, and being responsible for the agents that I am, is I do like teaching. I do like giving back. And because I think it's more complicated now. You know, I've often said that, you know, I've been doing this 33 years, probably anytime within the last 10 years, if I don't know if I'd make the same decision to go in the real estate business, I'd probably be, you know, doing something more like what you're doing, maybe, you know, the management and the outfitting and, you know, guiding hunts and that sort of thing. Just because of the complexities of the business, how it's gotten a little bit more complicated. So, I mean, you know, a lot of people, when they think real estate, you know, the old joke back when I first got started, you know, everybody, you know, thought realtors, real estate agents, you know, they're all rich because they all run around in Cadillacs or a nice shiny truck and, you know, show properties. Well, to a certain degree, that's true. I mean, you know, that was part of the image. That's kind of relaxed a lot. You know, I can remember the first 10 years of selling real estate, I wore a suit and tie every day. I haven't had a tie on in 15 years. I hope I don't ever have to put one on. I've got 200 of them in my closet, but I just don't like wearing ties anymore. So, you know, getting a good mentor, you know, because, I mean, the thing about the real estate business, I mean, there's, you know, there's commonality in, you know, real estate law, the things you need to know to sell real estate. And quite honestly, just to go off on a slight tangent, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't get that proper mentorship, and I see them because I deal with them. You know, call it some real estate agent that, you know, selling land and that sort of thing. And, you know, they really don't fully understand what it takes to do a real estate transaction. Yeah, they may know a lot about the land, and there's a lot of people getting into our business that are great hunters. They're great, you know, they're great outdoorsmen, but it takes them a long time to really figure out the ins and outs of being a real estate professional and knowing what it takes to actually do a real estate transaction, because there's lots of complexities in it, like I said. But get a good mentor, you know, get somebody that's willing to show you the ropes. And yeah, if it's something you love to do, I mean, that's what we're constantly looking out for. I mean, it's not like we actively search, you know, for agents. We probably turn away more people that say they want to be a real estate agent and do what we do, because, you know, there's lots of different key elements that I think a person has to have. So, I mean, to do what we truly do, I mean, it's got to be the right fit. I mean, you know, there's big real estate companies out there that, you know, some of them have, you know, 20, 30, 40, even 100 plus agents, and that's what they're all about. They're about working on that volume. I'd rather work on quality than quantity, and you know, what we're always looking for is, you know, that doesn't have to be young. I mean, I've mentored and, you know, helped retired guys, you know, become successful selling real estate and doing what they love, whether it be the residential, commercial, or, you know, the land side of things. But that's the most important thing, because not everybody out there selling real estate, unfortunately, really knows what they're doing.
Yeah. So
I'm not saying that I know everything, because I don't. You never will. If you ever stop learning, you die. But it's a learning process, and you got to be willing to learn, willing to adapt, willing to adjust, and really just plug in. And, you know, there's so many things that we have to know in the real estate business and in the land business, really just to stay out of trouble these days. But you just gotta be willing to, you know, always put the client or customer first. And, you know, that's typically where I'll turn a guy away that says they want a career in real estate. You know, I mean, it's sad to say, but you can tell a lot about a person when you meet them and you talk to them. Because if you're all about yourself and, you know, you're all about, you know, you just want to make all this money, that's great. That's a byproduct. If you do a good job, you're going to make a lot of money. But you got to do it the right way and for the right reason. And the customer and client's always first. It makes no difference. I do more pro bono work than probably most real estate agents in the business, because that's just, again, it's about building relationships. It's about a network. It's about that trust. And it's not always about getting paid.
No.
Because if I got paid, for everything I do, I would be the richest man in the world. But, you know, we do a lot of things that are part of what we do that you're not necessarily going to get paid for. And that's where a lot of people struggle. I mean, we talked about a little bit earlier when I left that, you know, steady paycheck to live a life, you know, based on, you know, earning commissions. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. So for people that don't understand, like myself, broker, agent, what are the tiers of the real estate industry?
Well, that's really the only two there are. I mean, the broker, I mean, I'm merely the guy in charge of the people. I mean, there's two different licenses. You have broker's license and you have a salesperson license in the state of Kansas anyway. That's the way it works here. I mean, real estate laws differ state to state. And so, I mean, and licenses are regulated state to state. So to sell real estate in Kansas, I have to have a Kansas real estate license. If I want to sell real estate in Oklahoma, I got to have an Oklahoma license. Or that's kind of the beauty of our network that I've mentioned a couple times now, whether it be United Country, you see hunting properties, just our own regional division of our company. You know, back in the old days, you know, you'd have agents that did what I do that would get licensed in multiple states. Well, it's a lot of education because it requires, you know, continued education every year to keep up all them licenses, and plus there's expense to keeping a license. And if you're doing that in multiple states, it gets to be quite overwhelming, which was one of the reasons that drew me to where I'm at with United Country, because I realized, you know, I could join, you know, a 100-year-old company that, you know, again has, you know, 4,000 agents nationwide. And if I'm sitting in the cafe and I hear somebody say that we need to sell Aunt Minnie's farm in Utah, you know, I don't have to discount that or ignore that, because with what I'm involved in, I know I don't have a license in Utah, but I know somebody in Utah that does, and I can collaborate with them to put together a real estate transaction. I mean, the typical real estate agent, really, they're even more, you know, pigeonholed than that. I mean, there are agents in the Wichita metro area where I'm from that, you know, they're only going to sell property on the east side or only on the west side. Well, real estate's real estate. I'll go anywhere in the state. You know, my license is in the state of Kansas. But that's not the norm. But in what we do, again, talking about this lifestyle, you know, when we're talking about selling land, I mean, you got to get a little bit outside of the metro areas. So, I mean, it's just a lot of complexities.
Yeah.
So get somebody that's going to guide you through it without you getting in trouble, because really that's my job as a broker. So that hierarchy of, you know, agent and broker, you know, you have to be an agent and a certain amount of experience, at least 2 years in the state of Kansas. Actually, they can waive it. You can do it in less if you do enough real estate experience, enough transactions, what have you, to where the state feels like, yeah, maybe we can trust you with a broker's license. But what it boils down to, as the broker, I'm responsible. If you're my agent and you screw up, yeah, you're in a little bit of trouble, but I'm in a lot of trouble because I'm supposed to be supervising you. So that's really the main difference. I mean,
so does the broker own a section of the company?
I mean, typically, you know, a broker is going to be an owner, but not always. I mean, I'm not now. When I joined the partnership a little over a year ago with Midwest Lifestyle Properties, which is the United Country franchise name that I'm with now, again, you know, serving the various states. We actually it was, I don't know, the best way to describe it was, you know, for me, was kind of a merger sellout to join a bigger firm out of Wisconsin. And the reason I wanted that was, I mean, because I'd owned my own company since 1998. I wanted out of the ownership and part of it. I didn't want to be the owner anymore. I'm okay with being the broker because, again, doing what I love is mentoring and training and helping other people. I love that. So I was happy that we put together this partnership that we did, which allowed me to really step into the role of the part I really like to do, with getting away from all the noise of being the actual business owner. Everybody thinks the business owner is the guy that's, you know, got it made. No, he's the guy with all the headaches. Brokers have their share of headaches too, but the owner, he's got a lot of headaches.
I can tell you, as an owner of 2 different businesses, yes, there's a lot of headaches involved with being owner. So we've talked about your real estate agent side, so you're a multifaceted company. You also do auctioneering.
Right?
So, and you said you're a certified, degreed auctioneer. You're going to have to explain this a little bit.
Well, I mean, to the layman, I mean, none of it. There's lots of accreditations and lots of different, monikers after our name, whether it be an AARE accredited auctioneer of real estate, or whether it be a certified estate specialist. I mean, there's lots of different things that you can go out there and strive for. And again, it's about the learning. And I've done all that. But, on the auction side of things, I don't know. I've been in real estate business 33 years. When I was 10 years in is when I got in the auction business and became an auctioneer. I mean, I just seen the writing on the wall, and again, because of my love for the land, I'm a firm believer that when it comes to selling land, auction is the best method of selling land, and primarily that's how most land is sold, especially in our state. It's been done that way for thousands of years, and really, the biggest reason for it now is, I mean, we've kind of talked about, the different potential land buyers and, how land prices go up. We've just, and it's happened, it hasn't been, a real fast progress, but it's kind of been this progress of, I mean, used to kind of like, anything, I mean, you could almost, whether it be a residential type house, a commercial building, piece of land, you could almost, I won't use the term appraise, but you could come up with a value or definition of value on a piece of land. But because of all the other things we've already talked about and the different pools of buyers out there willing to buy something, I'm just a firm believer if you're selling a piece of land any other way than auction, you've left money on the table. Because I could sit down here with you and say, hey, let's list your farm, let's list your ranch, whatever, and we're going to price it here, and then we're going to wait for a buyer to come along. Who can truly say what that land is worth?
Yeah.
I mean, appraisers, bless their heart, I mean, they're a necessary evil in our business because we got to have them. There's got to be that professional, somebody with some sort of training, at least, trying to, pin a value on anything. But really, at the end of the day, what's anything really worth? What somebody's willing to pay for it. And, land being such a hot commodity, especially in the last 10 years, you put it out there in a spirited, open bidding, type competitive type auction. At the end of the day, if you've done your marketing right, you brought all the buyers to the table, we sell to the highest bidder, not the lowest. So you've got every nickel that you're going to get out of that property. Where, you could have priced it at X and find out later, well, it's really, there was somebody willing to pay more for that, but they just didn't know. The other thing about, the auction process, especially selling land, that I like more than anything, and it's crazy, it defines a drop-dead date. I mean, if the auction is August 15th and I'm a potential buyer, I've got to make a decision. Because too many times, purchase in real estate is a big decision. It's the biggest decision most people make ever in their life, and the biggest financial decision. So, I mean, as an example, this was over, I think it was Stafford County. Doesn't matter where it was. We had, I think it was a 320 half section of ground, mainly farm ground, had some good hunting on it too. We had it listed, and this was years ago, and we had it listed, I don't remember the numbers, but let's say we had it listed for $1,500 an acre. And the plan was, because the seller wasn't comfortable with going to auction, wasn't quite sure of that, so he said, well, can't we list it, and if it don't sell, then we'll take it to auction. All right, cool. We actually used to have a blended marketing method that we use quite often, that, fit that to a T. So we listed the property, and 45 days, if it hadn't sold, we was going to take it to auction. So here it was sitting on the market, for 45 days at $1,500 an acre, no interest. Well, now we're going to auction it. So the auction signs go up, and we put out that, and it's a very condensed marketing period of about 30 days prior to an auction. That word goes out, then all of a sudden everybody's calling, because, fear of loss is a great motivator. Because, when that for sale sign was up there, it wasn't forcing anybody to make a decision. Mm-mm. When the auction sign goes up with a date on it, now I got to make a decision. So in this story, it was actually the adjoining farmer ended up buying this property for $2,100 an acre at the auction. He had 45 days. He drove by that sign at least twice a day, every day, going back and forth to the field. Never called once. No motivation to call. But once the auction sign went up, now the motivation was, well, crap, if I want to buy this, I better, get my butt in gear. He could have bought it for $1,500 an acre.
Ended up buying it for 21.
Ended up buying it for 21. So that's just one of the many reasons I could talk about. I mean, it'd be a 20-hour podcast if we was talking about why auctions work, but that's just one of the many reasons. I mean, it's, spirit of competition, fear of loss, and you're giving somebody a reason to make a decision.
Yeah. And so I do want to talk a little bit about why auctions work, right? Because my experience could be way off, right? So let's say I was going to sell my house and I wanted to get top dollar out of it. The last thing I would think about where I live currently is to auction this house, because in my experience, they go less than what they're valued at.
You're absolutely right. And when you're talking about this house, if you called me here on a real estate appointment to talk about selling your house, this would not be an auction candidate. I mean, you live in a typical neighborhood. It's a nice house. It's a nice neighborhood. But what makes an auction more successful is, again, other than land, it's got to be something unique. And quite honestly, I mean, there's lots of auction companies out there now that think, and they do, they sell everything at auction. Not everything should be sold at auction. I say that kind of with tongue in cheek because the market we've experienced in the last 2 years has been pretty hot, and quite honestly, every transaction's been an auction. Because when I go out and list a house just like yours, and I've got 10 offers within the first day to come present to you, what am I really doing? We're having an auction.
Yeah.
Because typically what I do is I go back to them 10 people and say, okay, we got 10 offers. Give us your highest and best by noon tomorrow. That's what I'm going to present to the seller, and they'll pick the one that they want best. So really, it's kind of been an auction. But not every property is suited for auction. When you're the typical house in the typical type neighborhood, it may not be best suited for an auction. Really for me, and what I'm looking at when I'm trying to decide, whether a property, no matter what type of property it is, should be sold at auction, it's not just about the property, it's about the seller. Because there's different motivating factors, with the seller. Because, when a house like this would be a good auction candidate would be, that situation where maybe it's an estate, and I've been called by the kids, and, this was mom and dad's house, doesn't owe us a thing. We don't want it to, we don't want to list it and sell it. We don't want all the headaches of, contingencies that go along with a traditional type real estate transaction. We want to auction it because, again, there's more control for a seller in an auction because we can define everything. We can define, the date it sells. We can define the date we close. We can define that, we're selling it with no contingencies whatsoever. It's not contingent on you getting an inspection and backing out of the contract after the fact. All that legwork and due diligence has to be done in advance. So if the motivating factor isn't necessarily, the highest and best price, it's more about time frame. We want this done in 30 days. That's when it becomes more of a good auction candidate. Not that, you mentioned you've seen instances, and that's true. There are instances that, a piece of property, you see it sell at auction and you feel like it probably sold for less than what it should have. Yeah, somebody got a good deal. But typically that's because probably wasn't a good marketing campaign behind that. But typically if you're marketing the property right and you're getting the information out there, you should have, at least attracted, a handful of buyers willing to buy that property. And yeah, again, we sell to the highest bidder, not the lowest. So on any given day, if let's say $100,000 was, the last bid, that's what, the most somebody's willing to pay for it that day, then there you are. That doesn't mean that next week we couldn't have attracted 6 people with one other person that may be willing to pay $200. So it is, it's not always just about the property. It's about the motivating factors behind the deal. Lots of things go into that thinking. But I'm not a firm believer that, everything should be sold at auction. I mean, one of the more difficult things that we have to deal with on a regular basis, when you're talking about, land prices and stuff like that, a lot of times what does get hard is, dealing with sellers that have unrealistic expectations. I mean, we probably turn down more auctions than we do for that reason alone.
I was about to say, I would think that would happen a lot.
I mean, we turned down one not too far from where we're sitting right now on a nice piece of property, a nice 640 acres that I just know in my gut and in my heart, more importantly, they want more for that property than it's worth. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be the one to disappoint you.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to bring 7,000 acre, I'm sorry.
No.
It's not that good. It's good, but it's not that good.
Yeah, $7,000 an acre would be pretty.
I mean, we're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. I mean, hunting properties alone. And that's primarily what this would be, other than, its highest best use really is pasture. But because of its location, I mean, there's some good hunting aspects, but it's just, it's not there. And knowing that, I'm not gonna sit down and have a seller sign on the dotted line to, we're gonna do this auction, we're gonna spend, X amount of sellers' dollars marketing this property, only to know it's gonna fail in the end. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
I don't need your money. I don't need a failure on my record. I'm just not gonna do it.
No. And if you look at how many people, one of the things you stressed earlier is people that weren't as worried about the buyer or the seller, worried about the people involved and just worried about the money. They might go, well, if it doesn't make it, I still make mine.
Right.
And so it's a very noble and good thing that you look at them and go, honestly, I don't think it's going to go for what you're asking.
Right.
Or what you expect. I'm
Well,
not your guy. Or
still, in most real estate transactions, I mean, whether it be a failed auction or a failed listing, listing a property for sale that doesn't sell, I mean, for the most part, I mean, there are some, different business models out there that are emerging where people are getting, paid some sort of fee even when they fail, which is totally ludicrous to me. Why would you get paid to fail? Primarily, though, we still only get paid if we succeed. And again, I use what I call the teeter-totter scale. It's got to be, if this is, level, it's got to at least be tipped one way or the other. So if it's tipped just a little bit that I think we're going to be successful, I'll explain that to you, and I'll explain what I think our degree of success is. And it's not very much, but again, you've already said it. I mean, I'm more concerned with the seller. That's always seller, buyer, client, whoever it may be, versus what I'm going to get paid.
yeah, and that's honestly, I know a lot of people, and I've dealt with a lot of people. That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
In today's society.
I agree. I mean, I can honestly say 33 years. I've never had anybody mad at me. I've never had anybody disgruntled. I've never lied to anybody. I don't want anybody's money that bad. I don't need your money that bad. Because at the end of the day, or at the beginning of every day, I got to look at myself in the mirror and know that I've done the right thing. So, to anybody out there, you kind of asked this question 10 minutes ago. Get a good mentor, but one of the key things of, a real estate license in most states, and we're in Canada, so let's talk in. I mean, we have what's called a fiduciary responsibility. And that fiduciary responsibility is to the client. It's not to Bill Eberhardt and how much commission Bill Eberhardt's going to make at the end of the day. It's doing what's best for that client. And it's so easy, to, get sucked into, again, when you're working on commission only, to do the wrong thing for the buck that you shouldn't have or that you wouldn't have ordinarily done. But, it's been 45 days since your last closing. Car payments due here. Actually, it's 2 weeks overdue now, so I got to make a buck. And if you get caught up in that, you'll have nothing but trouble. But if you kind of take the route that I've chosen, or that I believe I've chosen, and always look, out for the client first or customer, clients or, people that have actually signed a contract that we're going to do business with. A customer may be somebody that, I just may be showing a property to, so we call them a customer until I have something in writing that says I'm their buyer's agent, and then they become a client, and then I have some fiduciary responsibility towards them. But if you're always, doing what's right for that customer or client, the reward is it just, you reap what you sow. So, if that's your reputation and everybody knows that, you're going to have plenty of business to feed your family. You don't have to do anything underhanded or do anything that's going to cause you to make, a knee-jerk reaction to do something that you probably shouldn't do to make a buck.
Yeah.
So.
And ultimately, wouldn't it be nice if everybody was that way? That everybody you dealt with
Yeah.
was someone that was more worried about your success
Yeah.
and your benefit than their own?
It is uncommon. I'll give you that. I mean, and this, again, you talk about the evolution of real estate. And again, I don't want to get too technical and bore the audience. You all fall asleep. But this kind of was an evolution that's kind of happened over time where, and it's one of the most frustrating things for me as a real estate agent when I'm out, looking to sign an agreement with either a buyer or seller to do business, is the fact that I have to sit down and explain these agency relationships and the fact that, my duty is supposed to be towards you. I'm not supposed to be looking out for the other party, other than, I'm not going to lie to anybody, cheat anybody, try to cheat anybody in any way, shape, or form in order to make a dollar. You have them sign, paperwork stating that you've explained this to them. And the fact that we have to explain that we're going to be honest and look out for your best interest just really kind of irks me.
Oh, yeah. We were talking a little bit about the auctioning side and your real estate side of things. And one of the things that we did mention earlier is how it is nice to be able to go out to outfitters and be able to hunt with outfitters and know that the game you're looking for, they can point you in the right direction, right? And through our conversation, believe it or not, we are, if I'm right, we're pushing 2 hours now, aren't we, Carson? So I'm not going to keep you here too much longer. I am curious. I haven't taken the opportunity. How was dinner?
It was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My compliments to the chef, which I assume was you.
Well, it was
partial
a group effort.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, we, as everyone knows, that we also have a barbecue company where we sell rubs and stuff like that at Rub Me Down Barbecue. So, you like the brisket? And
Absolutely. Some of the best I've had. I may not be the world's best connoisseur of bourbon, although this is, hitting the spot. But yeah, the barbecue was very good. I'm not sure what rub you had on it. You'll need to tell me, but yeah, excellent.
I'll tell you right now. So, the audience who's watched us numerous times has heard me say this story. So we have a group that comes down and hunts with us, and they own a cattle company in Missouri. Missouri. I get in trouble no matter how I say it.
Misery, whatever.
Yeah, Misery, whatever it is. And they said, hey, we have this rub we're using on our meat. It isn't quite there. Can you help us? We were like, yeah. So they sent us the recipe, and we looked at it, and we pulled stuff out, put stuff in, and changed how they did it, and developed that rub, sent it to them. And it's been off the charts. Everybody loves it, especially on brisket beef. We took it, and we put that rub into ground deer burger. Right when we're grinding it, we put that rub in, and you can't tell it's deer anymore. For all the people that are like, I don't like deer burger, blah, 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 we put the Spinks Ranch beef rub. Not Spinks Ranch as in ranch flavoring.
Right.
Spinks Ranch as the cattle company, Spinks Ranch beef rub. We put that into that deer burger, and There's no more of that, what people don't like, the gamey flavor. It completely eliminates that. I should have mixed more tallow into the burger,
Right.
because it's like 99 good deer burgers, doesn't have any fat in it. So we put Spink's Ranch beef rub on the brisket tonight, and the burn ends as well, and I really enjoyed it. The burn ends were a little tougher than what they should be, but that's part of life.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they still tasted good.
Oh yeah, they were good. Their flavor was definitely good. So I'm going to give you one more opportunity, because I don't want to keep you here all night. Why don't you tell the audience anything that comes to mind, anything you want to say, whether you want to give yourself a little promo, whether you want to tell them something that's been on your mind, whatever it is, here's your opportunity.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, and again, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. It's been fun, talking to you. I've done other podcasts. This is the first time where we ever sit around and sip whiskey, so it's kind of be a prerequisite from now on if I'm going to do a podcast. But yeah, I don't want to spend a whole lot talking about me. That's boring. But, one of the things that we've talked about, this evening that's probably most exciting is, maybe somebody out there, kind of like me, with a young entrepreneurial spirit of some sort, maybe looking to get in the real estate business. We're looking for guys like that. We've talked about different types of agents. One of the good things about Kansas is there's probably, by comparison to a lot of states where I've had some experiences, we do have a plethora of really good agents out there, a lot of good land agents, a lot of guys out there, that are doing the right things, and, you see their successes. But, if that's something that piques your interest at all, the only plug I'll give it, I'd be happy to talk to you. Again, I get more joy and pleasure out of mentoring somebody, helping somebody along, showing them the roads, maybe guiding you down a path that, you may want to go, that you just don't know, how to get there, and maybe it doesn't amount to anything, but let's at least talk. I can, I've got kind of a general spiel of information that I share with anybody that, shows me, or, I see that their interest is piqued in, potential real estate business, somebody that, is about living the lifestyle that we live, whether it be hunting, property, farms, ranches, or whatever. We've pretty much got a fit for everybody. That's one of the, and I don't want you to think that, that's all, we're looking for. Again, there's, property types, come in all various shapes and forms. And, that's one of the things I appreciate about the company that I work for is, we have what we call SPGs, specialty property groups. And, we have probably 50 different, specialty property groups, whether it be hunting land, whether it be, golf course properties, lakefront properties, waterfront, oceanfront even. So, whatever your interest may be, again, if that's something, if you would like to do what I've done and basically intertwine, your love of certain things into what you do for a living, we can help you with that. Again, whether you're the golfer or whether you're the hunter, we've got something that would fit for everybody. So I'd be happy to talk to you about that. It's a fun business. Again, the freedom of it, the people you meet, being in that business was one of the reasons, again, that I met Stephen, and the reason I'm sitting here now. So, it is all about the people you meet. Make the most of your life. Life is short, life is precious. Just be sure, you're having fun, you're meeting the right people, and, just be honest with yourself more than anything. And even above that, be honest with everybody else, and you'll be successful no matter what you do.
Amen. 100%.
So,
and the one thing I'll say, just to add to it, is if you're going to do anything in life, don't expect it to be easy.
No,
it's going to be tough, and you're going to have to work at it,
exactly.
and you're going to have to strive. And just like you said, you were a machinist for several years while you were in real estate, so it takes some time to build that as well.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, nothing ever happens overnight. It's a toil that we go through. That's to right. Try to get through. So, if you don't have anything else you want to add?
Nothing at all. I just like to say, I don't want to plug my information, and but I'm easily reachable. anybody looking to maybe have that conversation, feel free to give me a call. You know, I'm in the Wichita area. I actually live east of Wichita, out in the country. I mean, my direct phone line, I mean, it's published out there, has been for 30-some years, is 316-655-3690. UCHuntingProperties.com is one of our websites, again, where we talk about, and you can kind of really get a glimpse and a taste of the lifestyle that we lead and kind of what we're looking for. So you might, you know, kind of check that out. But be happy to talk to anybody, whether it's, you know, whether it's about, you know, maybe, you know, starting down a career path, or whether it's about, you know, hunting, or anything that has to do with, you know, the type of lifestyle that I believe we've been talking about for, you know, the last couple hours. So with that, I would just say cheers. Again, cheers to Carson. Cheers to Stephen. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it. It's been a great opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. I enjoyed it tremendously. I learned stuff. The good thing about being dumb like me is you can have all kinds of people on and you learn all this stuff. It's just, how long will I retain it?
I said it, never stop learning. That's the key. I think that's really the key to success, because a lot of people get complacent. They get comfortable with where you're at. If you're comfortable with where you're at, guess what? You're going to stay where you're at.
Exactly.
So always be willing to learn, be open-minded, treat everybody with respect, and again, honesty is the key. The golden rule is the golden rule, and it's the golden rule for a reason. So,
amen. Well, as I end every podcast, thank you guys for listening. Remember, shop local, shop mom and pop. When you go look for that donation, the sponsorship, when we reached out to find an auctioneer, we didn't go to Walmart, right? We didn't go to Target. We went to our local auctioneers. We asked them, and Bill was more than willing to assist us because he had the time. Matter of fact, I believe he's going to assist us again this year.
I'll be there.
So shop local, shop mom and pop. When you go asking for that donation for your kids' softball, your daughter's dance, baseball, football, whatever it is, you're going to go to your local businesses. Those are going to be the people that support you. So it's only right that we support them in every way we can. Shop American made first every single time. Thank you guys. Look forward to seeing you again. Talk to you later.